thought he could intimidate a defenseless woman without consequences. But out of nowhere, Chuck Norris appeared. What happened next left everyone speechless. Hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments, what city are you watching from? The city buzzed with evening energy, neon lights shimmered on the wet pavement, painting the streets with streaks of color as cars zipped past. The hum of traffic blended with distant sirens and the occasional car horn, creating that familiar urban symphony. People flowed down the sidewalks, some rushing, others glued to their phones, barely looking up. Among them moved Emily, slower, more careful. One hand cradled her belly, the other gripping her bag. She was tired. More than tired. She'd left work late and now made her way alone through the fading crowd toward the bus stop. Even with the city's noise around her, something felt off. That prickling on the back of your neck kind of feeling, the kind that says someone's watching. She glanced behind her, but everything seemed normal. People hurried by, disappearing into subway stations and store doors. Still, that sense of being followed clung to her. Then she heard it, footsteps. Not rushed. Not lazy. Just intentional. Measured. Like someone walking with purpose. Her pulse picked up. Maybe she was just being paranoid, exhausted. But her instincts weren't backing down. She slowed near a crosswalk, letting a crowd pass in front of her. As they moved by, she glanced sideways, subtle, just enough to scan her surroundings. That's when she saw him. Tall. Built. Wearing the dark blue of the city police. His badge glinted in the light. The name tag read Grayson. She didn't know him personally, but she knew of him. Everyone around here did. Officer Grayson was the kind of cop people whispered about. The kind who pulled people aside for random checks that didn't feel so random. The kind whose force always felt a little too aggressive, but complaints never stuck. He was the law. And now he was behind her. She kept walking, trying not to show her rising fear. Maybe he was just heading the same way. But her body knew better. Up ahead, a narrow alley. It wasn't ideal, but it was a shortcut to the bus stop. And if he was following her, better to find out now than when the street was completely empty. She turned into the alley. It was quiet, too quiet. One flickering street lamp lit the narrow path, casting strange shadows on the brick walls. The smell of damp concrete and old trash lingered in the air. For a second, she thought maybe she'd been wrong. Then, crunch. A boot step. She spun. He was there. Standing at the alley entrance, blocking her exit, eyes locked on her like a predator sizing up its prey. The dim light made his features even harsher. His mouth curled, not into a smile, but something colder. It wasn't a coincidence. He waited for this. Before she could move, he was already stepping forward. His hand clamped down on her shoulder, tight, bruising. Emily gasped, her knees buckling. Then he shoved her. Not just a push, a warning. A message. She stumbled back. Her foot caught on uneven pavement. She fell, hard. The ground knocked the breath out of her. Her arms flew to protect her belly. Pain shot through her elbow. Her lip hit the pavement. Copper flooded her mouth. Above her, he stood, calm. Relaxed. Like he had all night. Like this was nothing. Emily tried to crawl backward, but her limbs didn't work the way they should. And that's when something unreal happened. Chuck Norris stepped into the alley. No announcement. No sound. Just there, like a ghost out of legend. Grayson froze. The look on his face? Priceless. But what happened next? Nobody saw it coming. She had never felt this exposed, so completely powerless. Just beyond the alley, the world went on like nothing was wrong. Cars kept driving. People kept laughing. The city kept living, utterly unaware. Emily's breath came in short, shallow gasps. Panic had taken over now, clouding every thought. No one was coming. No one was going to save her. And Grayson, he knew it. Pain pulsed through her body as she tried to steady her breathing. The fall had stunned her, her limbs felt heavy, her thoughts slow. One hand still clutched her stomach. That instinct to protect, to shield the life growing inside her, overrode everything else. But looking up at Grayson, she realized this wasn't about her being pregnant. This was about control. Something darker. He didn't move right away. He just stood there, watching. Calm. Amused. Like a predator toying with its prey after already deciding how the story ends. Her pulse thundered. She'd heard stories like this before, heard them whispered at neighborhood meetings, read them between the lines of headlines. She knew the type. Not just a cop who bent the rules, but one who used the badge to hide. A predator in uniform. And now, in this narrow stretch of darkness, he had her exactly where he wanted. Emily forced herself up, propping herself on one elbow, the other hand still protectively pressed against her belly. Grayson's boot shifted, a warning. She froze. His hand hovered casually near his belt, fingers tapping lightly against his baton. It looked effortless. But she wasn't naive. It was calculated. This was a game to him. Her scraped fingers clawed at the gritty pavement, trying to push herself higher. Pain flared in her elbow. The silence felt thick, crushing. Beyond the alley, life pulsed. A horn. Laughter. A conversation in the distance. But here, time had stopped. Her breath was shallow. Unsteady. She needed to move. To do something. But the fear was paralyzing, wrapped tight around her lungs. She glanced toward the street. It wasn't far. If she could just stand. Grayson tilted his head, almost amused, like he could read her thoughts. Then he stepped forward. Just one step. That was all it took. The shift in energy was instant. Now he wasn't just watching. He was closing in. His presence filled the space, crushed it. Emily's body locked. She wanted to scream. To run. But she couldn't. Terror short-circuited everything. Grayson crouched slightly, hands resting on his knees like he had all the time in the world. His face was unreadable, but the glint in his eyes made her stomach turn. He enjoyed this. She had heard the rumors. Of women cornered. Threatened. Humiliated. But that had always felt distant. Something that happened to other people. Now she was the story. And like every one of those stories, she could already see how it ended. Then, movement. A man walked past the alley entrance. His eyes flicked toward them. Emily's heart jumped. She opened her mouth to scream, but before a sound escaped, Grayson shifted. His hand dropped to his baton. He didn't even need to draw it. The message was clear, don't even think about it. And just like that, the passerby looked away. 1 second. That's all it took. He kept walking. Emily watched in silent horror as the man disappeared, swallowed by the city's blur. She wanted to scream after him. To beg. But nothing came. And even if it had, would it have mattered? Because that's how it always went. People saw. They always saw. But they never stepped in. Fear was a disease here. It lived in the cracks of every sidewalk, in the walls of every apartment, in the quiet warnings passed between neighbors. And men like Grayson? They fed on that silence. He began tapping the baton against his glove now. Slow. Rhythmic. Like a metronome marking time until something worse happened. Was he waiting? Watching her squirm? Waiting for her to make the next move? Her hands clenched into fists on the pavement. Her body screamed at her to act, but how? He was bigger. Stronger. Armed. And she was alone. Then the fear shifted. It twisted into something colder. Harder. This wasn't just about hurting her. This was about power. And right now, he had all of it. Her breath caught again as he took another step forward. The rubber sole of his boot scraped slowly against the pavement. No one was coming. No one was going to stop him. And he knew it. The city had no eyes. It moved, breathed, lived, but it didn't see. People strolled past the alley, faces bathed in the soft glow of streetlights and neon. They laughed, talked, scrolled through their phones, never once turning their heads toward the shadowed gap between two buildings where a woman lay trembling on the ground. Emily was trapped in that blindness, in that cold, uncaring void where only the ones who suffer truly see what's real. Grayson knew exactly where he was. He stood tall, unbothered, tapping his baton slowly against his gloved palm. That steady rhythm wasn't just sound, it was threat. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't worried. He had time. All the time in the world. And he wanted her to feel it. Emily tried to push herself up again, but her body wouldn't cooperate. Shock and fear had drained the strength from her limbs. She had no weapon. No way to fight back. And even if she screamed, who would listen? Who would dare? Grayson shifted his weight. Another scraping boot step. The alley felt like it was closing in, suffocating her. His shadow stretched across the ground like a jagged monster, swallowing hers completely. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She had to act. Anything. But just as she braced to move, something shifted. The air changed. Like the city took a breath and forgot how to exhale. The baton stopped tapping. Grayson's head turned slightly, just enough to acknowledge what Emily already felt. Someone was watching. At first, it wasn't clear who. The sidewalk was still crowded. No one had stopped. No one looked concerned. But then, she saw him. A man. Not just any man. He moved like he'd stepped out of a different world. Out of time. Out of legend. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Wearing dark jeans, a simple shirt, and a worn denim jacket. Nothing flashy. Nothing loud. But impossible to ignore. His presence wrapped around him like a force field. He didn't weave through the crowd moved for him. Even people who hadn't looked at him seemed to feel it, that quiet, invisible command in the way he walked. Like the city itself made room. Emily's breath hitched. Grayson turned now, fully, his shoulders stiff, eyes narrowing. He knew it too. This man wasn't a passerby. He wasn't a witness. He was something else. A force. The baton in Grayson's hand went still. His fingers curled around it tighter. His expression faltered, just slightly. Irritation. But behind that, caution. The man reached the entrance of the alley and stopped. The world seemed to pause. The neon behind him painted the edge of his jacket, but his face stayed mostly in shadow. Only his eyes stood out, dark, locked on Grayson. No words. None needed. Emily felt it. The shift in the balance of power. It swept through the alley like a wind change before a storm. The unspoken law between predators when one recognizes another. Grayson's jaw clenched. He wasn't scared, not yet, but he was on alert now. And that alone changed everything. The man in denim stepped forward. Just one step. Solid. Grounded. Direct. He didn't blink. Didn't flinch. Grayson inhaled slowly through his nose, thinking. Calculating. Could he still get away with this? Could he win? Emily saw the answer in his stance. He was uncertain now. And the man walking toward him wasn't backing down. The alley was silent, but no longer empty. The city still moved beyond its walls. Cars honked. Laughter floated out of a bar. Life continued, blind and unaware. But here, between bricks and shadows, time had thickened, slowed down. Emily lay frozen, watching it unfold. A confrontation neither of them had expected. And she had never seen a man move like that. She had never seen anyone like him before. Someone who could walk into a space and completely shift the balance of power without saying a single word. Grayson felt it. You could see it in the way his shoulders squared, muscles tightening beneath his uniform. That casual baton tap, once full of arrogant rhythm, had gone still. His grip had changed, fingers curling tighter, knuckles whitening. He was sizing the man up now, his eyes scanning every inch, his frame, his stance, the way he moved without moving. And the man in the denim jacket? He just stood there. Loose. Balanced. Calm. But not passive. He wasn't tense. He wasn't uncertain. He was ready. Not with fear, but with experience. The kind of patience that only comes from someone who's seen this kind of moment before and already knows how it ends. For the first time, a flicker of something cracked across Grayson's face. Unease. It lasted only a second, buried quickly beneath the years of unchecked power, but Emily saw it. And so did the man standing across from him. Then, Grayson made his move. It was fast. Brutal. The air split with the sharp whistle of a baton slicing downward, aimed straight at the stranger's head. It never landed. In a move so fluid it barely looked real, the stranger sidestepped. No panic. No rush. He was already in motion before the swing had finished. The baton missed completely. Then came the counterstrike. A single fist slammed into Grayson's solar plexus, precise, ruthless. The kind of hit meant to end a fight. The sound was sickening, thick, hollow, final. Grayson doubled over, gasping as air left his lungs in a wheezing rush. His grip on the baton slipped. But the stranger didn't pause. A second strike followed, low, direct, to the ribs. Controlled. Not wild. Not rage. Precision. Every move had purpose. Grayson stumbled back, his boots scraping against the alley floor, pain etched deep into his face. Emily couldn't even breathe. She'd seen fights before, street scraps, club brawls. But this wasn't that. This wasn't chaos. This was calculated. The man in the denim jacket wasn't fighting for dominance. He was fighting to finish. Grayson growled, wounded more in pride than flesh. But he recovered quickly. Too quickly. He was trained. He was used to being the strongest man in the room. He'd spent years getting his way by force. But not tonight. Not against this man. This time, Grayson gripped the baton with both hands. His movement slowed, more measured. He aimed low, swinging toward the stranger's knee. A disabling move. It missed. And this time, the stranger didn't just dodge, he stepped into it. His hand snapped out, catching Grayson's wrist mid-swing. In one clean, practiced twist, he disarmed him. The baton clattered to the ground, skidding away. And something in the air shifted. Grayson tried to pull back, but the stranger was already moving, stepping in, shifting weight, flipping Grayson off balance. The officer hit the ground hard. Concrete slammed into his back. The air knocked from his lungs again in a stunned exhale. For a second, he just lay there. Winded. Disoriented. The stranger stepped forward. Not rushing. Just presence. Calm. Controlled. He stood over Grayson, not smiling, not taunting, just finished. And somehow, that calm scared Emily more than violence ever could. Grayson groaned, rolling onto his side, face twisted in pain and rage. His hand twitched, reaching for his belt. For the gun. That's when the boot came down. Not on his hand, but right next to it. Firm. Final. A warning that didn't need explanation. Don't. Grayson froze. and for the first time, real fear entered his eyes. Emily's breath shook loose from her chest. Her whole body trembled, the adrenaline turning her limbs to water. She didn't know what would happen next. Maybe Grayson would come after her again. Maybe he'd wait, retaliate later. But right here, right now, he had lost. Someone had finally made him feel what he had made so many others feel. Powerless. The stranger took a step back. The stranger lifted his foot from where it had been planted near Grayson's hand. He didn't look at Emily. He didn't say a word. He simply turned. Calm, unhurried, the same way he had entered. He walked back toward the mouth of the alley and disappeared into the night, swallowed by the city's indifferent glow. The fight was over. But something told Emily it wasn't the end. Behind her, the sound of Grayson's heavy breathing filled the alley. Uneven. Jagged. Like his lungs were trying to catch up with the reality of what had just happened. He lay sprawled across the concrete, stripped of the power he'd carried so casually only moments ago. His fingers twitched, curling into fists, gripping at the last fragile pieces of control. His pride had been wounded deeper than his body. And that was a pain he clearly wasn't used to. Emily hadn't moved. She sat frozen where she had fallen, watching it all unfold like a dream she never imagined she'd live through. The stranger was already fading into the crowd, his silhouette dissolving into the light at the edge of the alley. He hadn't gloated. Hadn't lingered. He didn't need to. Grayson, though, he wasn't done. A low growl rumbled in his throat as he pushed himself up, limbs shaking. His jaw clenched, his face twisted in fury. He wasn't used to this. Not used to losing. Emily saw it happen, the moment when survival turned to revenge. His hand drifted toward his belt. Toward the holster. Even now, shaken, humiliated, broken, he was still a man with a weapon. But the stranger hadn't left. Not yet. The instant Grayson's fingers brushed the holster, the man in denim turned. No rush. No panic. Just that look. Those same dark, unreadable eyes locked onto Grayson like a switchblade in the dark. And Grayson froze. Not out of fear exactly, but out of certainty. Because he knew. If he went for that gun, the consequences would be swift. And absolute. His hand hovered, trembling. Breath tight. Rage burning behind his eyes. But deeper than that, something more primitive. Something that whispered, "You are not in control anymore." The stranger took one step forward. That was all it took. Grayson dropped his hand. His lips curled in frustration, his shoulders slumping ever so slightly. He wanted to strike back. Wanted to claw back the power he'd lost. But somewhere inside, he knew. It was already over. The man in the denim jacket didn't say a word. He didn't need to. Emily felt it in the air, the weight of finality. She could see it in the set of Grayson's jaw, the shift in his posture. He could escalate, sure, but not without cost. Real cost. And for once, he didn't have the upper hand. Then came a sound. Distant at first. A soft hum rising through the city's background noise. Sirens. Growing louder. Closer. Grayson heard them too. His body stiffened. His eyes darted to the street, where blue and red lights began to reflect off the slick pavement. And for the first time that night, he looked truly unsure. Emily felt her chest tighten. He was going to be held accountable. Phones were up now. Faces peered into the alley from the sidewalk. The same crowd that once looked away was watching. Filming. Remembering. No one spoke. No one stepped in. But their silence wasn't fear this time, it was witnessing. And Grayson felt it. All of it. A flicker of realization passed through his eyes. Not regret. Just a bitter taste of inevitability. The stranger didn't move. He didn't need to stay. He had already done what he came to do. He had shifted the tide. Just enough. Then he turned. And this time, there was finality in it. He walked away, his step steady, unshaken by everything he'd just done. As if this, too, was part of a life he'd lived before. Emily watched him go. Grayson did too. And for just a moment, just a breath, something desperate flickered in the officer's expression. Like he wanted to reach out. Not for the weapon, but for the power he'd lost. But it was already gone. And this time, the city had seen. He looked like he might call out, might demand something, but no words came. There was nothing left to say. Nothing he could do to reverse what had already begun. The crowd parted as the stranger stepped out onto the sidewalk, melting back into the city as effortlessly as he had appeared. Within seconds, he was gone. Emily barely had time to process it before police cruisers skidded to a halt at the curb. Car doors flung open. Officers spilled into the street, hands near their holsters, radios crackling. But there was no riot. No chaos. Only one of their own, Grayson, on the ground, bloodied and defeated under the cold glow of the street lamps. His badge couldn't shield him now. His authority lay broken around him, invisible but undeniable. One officer stepped forward, scanning the alley. His eyes moved from Grayson to Emily, still sitting shaken against the wall. "What happened here?" he asked. No one answered right away. Not out of confusion, but because they wanted it to be said. Out loud. Clear. Then, from somewhere in the crowd, he attacked her. Another voice. He shoved her to the ground. More followed. Layer upon layer of truth, spoken not in fear, but with resolve. Each voice a thread unraveling the power Grayson had hidden behind for so long. The officer turned, his expression hardening as he faced Grayson, who had managed to push himself upright but offered no defense. He knew. There was no saving this. "Check the security footage," the officer ordered. "I want to see everything." Grayson flinched. He knew what they'd find. He knew this time there was no spin, no excuse. No rewriting the story. Justice wasn't blind tonight. Emily breathed deep, letting the air sharpen her lungs. She was safe. But more than that, seen. For the first time in a long while, the city didn't feel so indifferent. The street pulsed with the red and blue glow of sirens. It reflected off the wet pavement like warnings from another world. The hum of the city returned, murmurs, police radios, honking horns from rerouted traffic. Emily sat on the curb, her body still trembling. She placed her hand on her stomach, grounding herself in the rhythm of her own breath. The crowd had grown. Phones recorded. Eyes watched. Not out of fear this time, but belief in what they'd witnessed. Grayson sat slumped, face twisted in pain and rage, uniform rumpled, dignity gone. Once untouchable, his name whispered in fear. But tonight, people saw him fall. Emily scanned the street, searching for the man in the denim jacket. The man who stepped into the dark when no one else would. Who fought without hesitation. And vanished without a word. But he was gone. Not a trace left. Not a single clue. As if he'd never been there at all. Others looked too. Eyes scanned doorways, sidewalks, alleys. Even the officers. But there was nothing. He had disappeared, swallowed back into the city that birthed him. A strange hollowness filled her. Like she'd witnessed something sacred. Fleeting. A force that didn't ask for thanks or applause. Just did what was right and moved on. "Miss, are you all right?" A voice pulled her back. An officer knelt beside her. His face was serious, but not cold. She opened her mouth. Nothing came. She swallowed, nodded slowly. "I think so." He noticed her hand resting over her stomach, and his tone softened. "We're going to have paramedics check you out, just to be safe." She nodded again, too tired to speak. Across the street, Another officer was questioning Grayson. There were no raised voices. Just clipped, final words. It was clear his badge wouldn't save him now. Not from this. And yet, Emily could see it. The way his fists clenched. The rage simmering behind his eyes. Not regret. Not shame. Just fury that someone had stopped him. She turned away. She wouldn't give him another second. Paramedics arrived, moving with practiced calm. One knelt beside her, her voice gentle and warm. "Do you feel any sharp pain?" "No," Emily whispered. "Just shaken." The paramedic examined her elbow, a deep scrape, nothing broken. "You're lucky," she said softly. It could have been much worse. Emily knew that. She had felt how close she came to something unspeakable. As the medic finished, she offered a nod. "We'll clean this up, but if anything feels off later, especially with the baby, don't wait. Get checked out." "I will," Emily replied, pressing her hand to her stomach. Still warm. Still strong. The crowd was thinning now. The shock had passed. People were moving on, but they were taking something with them. A story. A story of a cop who abused his power and finally faced justice. A story of a stranger who appeared, fought, and disappeared. Not legend. Truth. A reminder that even in a city where fear runs deep, where silence is the rule, there are still those who act. Who don't wait. Who don't ask permission to do what's right. Emily turned her head one last time. Grayson was being led to a cruiser. Pale. Defeated. And for once, with nowhere to run. The officer returned to her side. His voice low. "Do you know who that man was?" Emily hesitated. She didn't know his name. She'd never seen him before tonight. But deep down, she had always known his kind. "No," she said quietly. "But I don't think that matters." The officer studied her. Then nodded. As if that answer was more honest than any name ever could be. They helped her to her feet. She looked once more at the street, half expecting to see him watching. But of course, he was gone. The night had swallowed him whole. Just as it had before. Just as it would again. And somewhere out there, in another alley, in another moment, he was already walking toward the next fight. If this story moved you, make sure to subscribe for more. Check out our other videos for more gripping, emotional stories, and drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We read every one.